What would make 9 experienced hikers slash their way out of their tent and flee into a blizzard, leaving behind all their warmth, all their food, and all their hope of survival? On a frozen night in 1959, something forced them to run, and none of them would ever come back alive. Welcome to Sherlock Mode. January 23, 1959. 8 men and 1 woman from the Ural Polytechnic Institute set out on what seemed like a routine ski expedition. These were not amateur hikers. They were experienced mountaineers who had tackled difficult terrain before. The group, led by Igor Dyatlov, carried supplies for a 2-week journey through the remote wilderness of the Ural Mountains. They were confident. They were prepared. They had no idea what was waiting for them. For weeks, the expedition proceeded normally. Radio contact was maintained. The hikers sent messages to base camp. Everything seemed fine. But as February arrived, something changed. The group did not return on schedule. Days passed, a week passed, and then anxiety turned to dread. On February 20th, a search party was sent out. What they found defied explanation. The hiker's tent was partially buried under snow. The canvas had been slashed from the inside. The hikers had cut their way out of their own shelter. Inside the tent lay most of their possessions, warm clothing, equipment, everything they needed to survive. Yet they had abandoned it all. Outside the tent, searchers noticed something even more unsettling. Footprints led away from the camp down the mountainside. But these were not normal footprints. They were shallow, barely pressed into the snow. The hikers had been walking barefoot or in socks through sub-zero temperatures, and their footprints trailed off into darkness toward the valley below. The search continued into the ravine, and what they discovered was horrifying. Bodies. Some were found partially clothed, others nearly naked in the freezing cold. They appeared to have died of hypothermia. But there were other injuries. Burn marks on their skin, broken bones, trauma that could not be easily explained. And most disturbing of all, some of the bodies were missing their eyes and tongues. Here is where the mystery deepens. The official investigation concluded that the hikers simply froze to death. Case closed. But the circumstances demanded answers that the authorities refused to provide. Why would experienced mountaineers abandon their tent and flee into a blizzard wearing almost no clothing? What were they running from? What did they fear so greatly that freezing to death seemed preferable? Over the decades, theories emerged. Some claimed a yeti had attacked the camp. Others suggested secret military experiments, or even alien encounters. One theory involved infrasound, inaudible frequencies that could cause panic and fear in the human mind. But none of these explanations felt complete. The evidence did not fit. Then, in 2025, scientists returned to the case with a new tool: computer simulations. Using the terrain data and weather records from that night, researchers modeled what could have happened. And their conclusion was striking. A small avalanche. Not a catastrophic wall of snow, but a smaller slide that struck the slope where the hikers had pitched their tent. The model suggested that a combination of factors created the perfect disaster. Irregular topography, the cut they had made in the slope to level their tent, heavy snow accumulation from strong winds. Together, these elements destabilized the slope. A small avalanche broke loose and partially buried the tent. The hikers woke in terror. They had no time to think. They simply reacted. They cut themselves out and ran. But panic in a blizzard leads to tragedy. Some hikers likely became separated from others. Others sought shelter at the edge of the forest below. The cold intensified their confusion. Hypothermia set in. Desperate to stay warm, some removed their clothing, a paradoxical behavior documented in extreme cold exposure cases. And others may have been struck by a second avalanche as they descended. As for the radioactive clothing found on some bodies, records showed that several hikers had previously helped clean up after a nuclear accident. Their garments retained residual contamination. A mundane explanation for a detail that had fueled countless conspiracy theories. And the missing eyes and tongues? Examined more carefully by modern forensic analysis, these appear to be post-mortem damage caused by scavenging animals drawn by the bodies during the months before discovery. Not evidence of a ritual. Not evidence of a crime. Simply the harsh reality of exposure in the wilderness. Let us analyze what we now know. The mystery of Dyatlov Pass was not solved by supernatural forces or hostile conspiracies. It was solved by science, by patient research, by understanding how fear, cold, and a chain of natural events can overcome even experienced hikers. Their deaths were tragic, but they were not unexplained. The mountain claimed them through a combination of geological chance and human instinct. The most terrifying mysteries often have the most ordinary answers. If you enjoyed unraveling this mystery, like and subscribe to Sherlock Mode.